This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I think we're good. So today we're just going to be doing a go-to meeting video where I'm going to be talking to two of our associates, Scott and Megan. And just to introduce myself, my name is Christy Schmidt. I'm a manager in the audit department, and I've been with Dopkins about 7 years. So Scott, if you want to go ahead and just give your quick introduction.
Sure, I'm Scott Binky. I started as an intern at Dopkins in October of 2019, transitioned to a full-time associate in the assurance department in September of 2020. I did my undergrad at Fredonia, my master's program at UB, and I'm almost done with the CPA exam, hopefully. So that's cool, and I'll pass it to Megan.
All right, I'm Megan Gallo. I did my internship here at Dopkins last June and then started as a full-time in the associate department in October of 2020. And I did both my undergraduate and my master's in accounting at Rockport. And I am just starting to take the CPA exam. So I have my first exam in January.
Exciting. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys. So what we're doing is I'm just going to ask a couple of questions kind of about the recruiting, onboarding process, just to get a sense from Megan and Scott since they just recently went through it, and kind of just give a feel for future recruits at Dopkins if you're interested and you're curious, kind of what the process will be like for you. So that's what we're going for here. So I'm going to start off. My first question is, what's the value of the Dopkins internship? Or to say it another way, what kind of experience did you have with the internship? And I will start with Scott.
Okay, so in my experience, and now that I have some hindsight at what it's like being treated as an intern in a full-time staff, is I truly feel like I was treated as if I was already a full-time associate, but obviously I just was constricted to the 20-hour like part-time internship schedule. So I was provided the opportunity to work on a ton of different projects, like so a wide variety. I got to go out to a couple clients, and I was like provided some like more challenging, meaningful work where I kind of thought internships was more so like real bottom of the barrel, like pretty easy stuff just to kind of introduce it to you. So I think the value of it is that I was in the internship while I was going to school, and I had the opportunity to really see what I was going to school for, what the industry was like, and I was really given the opportunity to see like what is my first couple months on the job going to look like once I finally graduate and I transition into the full-time role. So I'm just in my experience, I had like a really good experience, met a lot of really smart people, got to meet different clients and get to see a lot of different types of work that happens in public accounting. So all good stuff for me.
Awesome. And I should mention, so both Megan and Scott were interns. Scott had a little bit of a different experience because he interned during the year, during our busy season, actually. Megan did the summer internship. So we've kind of got two internship experiences. So Megan, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, so I interned during the summer, which is benefit plan time. So I worked full time for a little over 2 months. And basically, like Scott, I was treated like a full-time employee. We were able to do most of the same work papers and assignments that the new full-time people were doing. It's not just like faxing and doing like sort of admin stuff. You're actually getting to dive into what you'll be doing as a full-time associate, which I really enjoyed. And I actually got to go out to clients almost every week and actually have client interaction, which I thought was pretty good. Like I actually got to like go and talk with clients and do different things. Like it wasn't like, oh, the interns can't talk with the clients. It was really like, oh, you're here, you're going to do all the work that we're going to do. And it's a little bit different for me switching from benefit plans to now going into like busy season. But it was definitely, yeah, I really enjoyed my experience, and it sort of felt like I was coming back doing the exact same thing, which was pretty nice.
Definitely. And I was an intern as well, so I well remember. Okay, my next question here, we briefly touched on it in the intros, but I have thoughts on taking the CPA exam. So if you want to just give, kind of your path maybe of how your plan for how you're doing it, anything like that. I'll start with Megan this time.
Okay, so I started studying after I started my full time. So I do like a couple hours after work and then majority of my studying on the weekends. So far it hasn't been too bad. I'm not planning on doing a lot of studying during busy season, but I sort of did it like a sandwich method for me.
Mhm.
Like I'm starting with audit, which is what I'm working in, so I knew it wasn't going to be something completely new. And then I was planning on taking, in my mind, what are the two harder tests, which were FAR and Reg, and then ending with BEC. So I'm hoping, I'll have my first test in January, have a little bit of break for busy season, and then get right back into studying.
Awesome. Scott?
So just kind of a blanket statement on the CPA exam is just like I would recommend just really think about it one step at a time, because when you think about it in its entirety, the four exams, the costs associated with it, the amount of preparation that it takes, um, and how important it really is for like your career moving forward, it can be like super overwhelming. So I like kind of like Megan has a plan, like make a plan, stick to it, take it one step at a time. Um, don't follow the way that I did it. I started with like what I found to be the easiest tests and I'm ending with the harder ones. I would recommend getting like what you would find to be the hardest exam for you and get it out of the way first, because then it's just kind of smooth sailing from there. Um, and like if you fail one, don't get discouraged, because there's a statistic that only like 10% of the candidates of the CPA exam pass all four without failing one. So like if you do end up failing one, like don't think that it's the end of the world or like people are gonna like make fun of you for it. Like it happens to 90% of the people that try to be CPA. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
That's a very good point, and you're so right. Do not get discouraged. I do remember those times, and it's very tough test, so it's not easy to pass. So yeah, no, that's great advice. Okay, my next question here is, how do you transition from the classroom to the office environment? And specifically at Dopkins, is there anyone to help with that? I guess I will start with Scott this time.
Okay. So I found the transition pretty good, because in my master's program, essentially my entire master's year was just group work, and like they kind of tried to mimic the idea of what it's going to be like in the office of like a public accounting firm. But in terms of the actual transition to the office environment of Dopkins, it was really smooth for various reasons. So they formally assign you a buddy and a career advisor. So you at least have one person that's like, it's their responsibility that if you're like completely lost or uncomfortable or something, they're there to help you. But then I also found that like when you're in the office, people are constantly up and about at different cubicles, asking questions, just talking through problems and stuff. So I kind of, while I was sitting there, noticed how easy it is and how like receptive people are to talking to one another. So I wasn't like, I didn't feel trapped and like I couldn't go and say hello, and like a lot of the time people aren't even necessarily talking accounting. Some of the times, like people actually have like friendships in the office, so that made me so. Yes, there's people there to help, and I just found the transition to be relatively smooth, and the team's good, and I get along with people, so I just felt comfortable in the scenario.
Absolutely. I did find, yeah, it's interesting. You study accounting in school, but it certainly is different working. The work environment and school environment are very different. So Megan, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a pretty similar experience to Scott in my master's. It was really sort of preparing you for going into work, and like him, it was a lot of group projects and a lot of like big assignments. And I definitely really like having at Dopkins two separate advisors. So you have like your buddy who is just sort of your like quick question, like things that you would think are like stupid questions or like you just don't know the answer. You can just like go and ask them, where like your career advisor is more like big picture questions, like what do you want to do, like how's busy season going, like that sort of thing, which I really liked having like designated people. But also like Scott said, like you can literally like turn to your left and be like, hey Steve, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Even if he's not working on a job with you, like your colleagues and people who are above you are completely open to answering any type of question that you have. And I mean, even with like the partners and directors here at Dopkins, like their doors are always open. Like if you have any sort of question, if nobody's available, and like with unfortunately the situation, some people aren't in the office, you can just go in and just be like, hey, I have a quick question. Like, are you free to answer it? And they're more than welcoming with like all different types of questions.
Yes, very good point. And certainly I've seen that over the years. But the open door that you mentioned is such a huge part of our culture that anyone at any time is willing to help. Certainly. Yes, no, great answers, guys. Okay, the next question I have, we mentioned a little bit when we talked about the internship, but just to go into a little more detail, are you stuck in the office during the internship? Are you left alone, in a cubicle, or what kind of client experience do you end up having? Oh, sorry, I'll start with Megan.
Okay, so I did EBP season, employee benefit plan season over the summer, and I would say I was out at the client majority of my time here. Even if it was, say, like the first 3 days of the week we were at the client, and then like we were back in the office like the last 2 days, I got to have a lot of client interaction and actually get to like ask questions of the controller and actually sometimes meet some of like the owners of the companies, which was really cool. And yeah, you're not stuck in a cubicle. Even if we're like in the office, sometimes like there's a conference room you'll work together, or when you're out at clients, you guys are all together in like a conference room. So there's like always coworker interaction, client interaction, which is really nice. It's not just like you're behind a computer like by yourself for 8 hours a day. There's like some travel involved, which is nice, and you sort of get to get out and network as well, like with the clients and stuff, which is really cool.
Absolutely. Scott?
Yeah, so I started in October, right? So October to March was like the old world and how it used to be, and I was able to get a ton of client interaction. I remember, I want to even say like my third week, like I was out at a client for a week, and like the team, like eventually as I moved like through and kind of built some trust, they were giving me like client email information. I was able to send like some correspondence and stuff like that. Um, and then, yeah, you do have a cubicle at the office, but I would say the floor plan of Dopkins is relatively open. So it's broken into like 3 rows where it's like seniors and associates, managers, and like directors and partners kind of around the area. And so I never felt like stuck because you can even just look up the other people and you're always welcome to get up and go and talk to people. So, um, yeah, like kind of like Michael was saying, a lot of client interaction, a lot of also just colleague interaction, and it's never just like, some people think of accounting like just sitting down crunching numbers like by yourself, but like that's so far from the truth. It really is. I would say 50% of your time is really just coordinating with either your teammates like on the job or the client to get like information or ask questions. So
Yes, no, that's a great point. I do always like to tell students and, people that haven't gotten into public accounting yet, it's so much more than what the typical accounting, the green visor at the desk at the computer. It's so much more about people than you ever realized before. It's a ton of people interaction, clients, are internally. So much of our job is talking with other people, and that's such an important piece. So yeah, no, very good point there. And I would mention regarding the internship, we certainly strive, and I think both of you experience this, we certainly strive to make the internship, really an introduction to a full-time work. So you're doing the kinds of things during the internship that you really would be doing as a first year associate, which I think is a good experience, not only to prepare you, but, all around. It's just, I think it's a great way to kind of introduce you to public accounting. Okay, so my next question here is, I guess I'll split it into two pieces. The first is, can you speak a little bit towards the busy season that we have at Dopkins? And then kind of secondly, I mentioned the difference between busy season and what people tend to think of the typical tax season. So I will start, did I start with Megan last time? I will start with Scott.
okay. Yeah, so I got to experience a little bit of busy season and because of the start of my internship essentially kind of rolled right into it. And now I'm like approaching my first actual busy season as a full-time staff. But in my internship experience, um, so kind of like right around the turn of the year, the hours will ramp up a tad, and it's really just a lot of like year-end audit work kind of starts in like January and February and whatnot. So it's a lot of out at the client, a lot of like financial statement audit work, I would say. from what I saw is they kind of cap the hours at 55, and it looks like they pretty much stick to that. So I know that there's a lot of emphasis on like breaking up the work and splitting it up, so it's not like somebody is just getting, completely killed with like 80 hours worth of stuff. So I know the scheduling team works like really hard on that. And I like actually saw that because obviously I was working with people and like nobody was staying till 10 p.m. at night. Like people were getting up like, all right, I'm out of here for the day, stuff like that. So people think of busy season and they're like, oh my gosh, like I hear these crazy stories of people working 90 hours, but like that's just not the case anymore. Um, and then so also when you tell people you study accounting, you want to be a CPA, they're always like, oh, could you do my taxes? And you're just like, oh, I don't do like tax. Like there's a whole world of accounting outside of tax that a lot of people that don't like work in the industry really know about. So the difference between like an audit busy season and a tax busy season is that tax is like there's a 415 deadline and like they have to have the work done at that point, and then once that deadline's over, like they're kind of done with their busy season. Where ours, like it's client by client when their year end is, when they want their financial statement issued, the nature, extent, and timing of our work is all different. So it's more of like a gradual build and a slow decline, as opposed to like it starts at 1/1 and it ends at 415. So
Right. Yes, no, very, very good point. Megan?
Yeah, so sort of to like piggyback off what Scott said, like you're not going to go right from like 40 hours to like up to 55. Like they sort of try and gradually go from like 45 to 50, like 40, and like sort of build it up to 55. So it's not like some dramatic shock. And then also the way I've heard that we do it is it's sort of like 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, you work 10 hours and then 5 hours on Saturday. So it's not like you're going to be working like 12 to 14-hour days during the week, which is really nice. It's sort of broken up for each day. And what I've also heard is like, it's not just you who's going to be working those 55 hours. Like everyone in the office is going to be working together. So it's not like you're going to be the only person staying until like 6 o'clock. Like everyone will be there together and like you can go and get coffee and like talk, and it's sort of you're all in it together, and it's not just like you are in it alone. And I feel like that's like with busy season, everybody thinks of it as such this big scary time, and it's really just everybody's working a little bit more, but you're going to learn so much during busy season, and it's going to go back down, and then you'll have like the summer and everything. So it is really nice that it's not like a sharp increase decrease. It's sort of a gradual, and then it'll gradually go back down. So it's definitely manageable, and because everybody's doing it, you're all in it together, which is pretty nice.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, I didn't think about that before when you said that, but yeah, the camaraderie of exactly what you said. We're all doing it. We're working a little bit more, but everyone's working together. And yeah, to your points as well, we do strive to keep the 55 hours. We don't want anyone, as Scott said, working until 10 o'clock at night, or so we do really try to keep that the max and work to manage everyone's schedule so that that's really attainable. It really allows you to continue to have life during busy season. It's not a terrible, terrible time that you hear about when you're in school. It's certainly manageable. And I would add Megan's point, during the off time, when we're not in busy season, people are very good about working, 40 hours and we're going home, because it's, we work so hard during busy season. We want to enjoy the rest of the year. So yeah, very manageable as far as busy season goes. Okay, so my next question here, and we touched on this a little bit, how was moving from the internship to full-time? So I guess I'll ask, what was maybe the biggest differences that you noticed, or maybe not so much, maybe it was very similar. I guess I just want to get your thoughts on that. So I will start with Megan.
So for me, the biggest difference going from the internship to my full-time is what I was working on. So when I started my internship, it was over the summer, which is mainly benefit plan audits. So that's what I did all summer. I think I may have done one actual financial statement audit over the summer. We're now starting in October, we're gearing up for financial statement audits. So for me, the biggest difference was just like the type of audits I'll be working on. But for the most part, like everything else was the same. Like I had already known the systems we use, which was really nice. Like there were like some updates, obviously, because it had been a year since I worked for my internship. But most of everything was basically the same. And obviously there's some new COVID rules and stuff to follow, but Other than that, I feel like I'm just back working again, like doing the same thing with like the same people, and it's been a really nice transition.
Scott?
Yeah, so when I started my internship, like I simultaneously accepted my full-time offer. So it was like already known by the firm that at the end of this internship, I was going to transition to full-time like 100%. There was no real doubt. So I feel like my internship was kind of like an introduction to some of the projects that they had planned for me to work on when I start full-time. So I would say different from Megan is like the nature of the work that I was doing didn't really change. It was just like the amount and the amount of responsibility that I was able to take on a project. So for instance, like in my internship, one of my first jobs I was on was an internal control engagement for a client. And then when I started full time, because it was around the same time of the year, I was on that same project and I kind of had that introductory experience. And then I just started, the 40 hours like at that client, and kind of my responsibilities kind of upticked a tad. So I would say that the transition was like really smooth for me because I saw a lot of the work that I initially like started doing when I started full time. It was just like the amount, right, and the responsibility, as opposed to working 20 hours a week and only having a part time capacity. I was now on those same projects but with a full time capacity. Um, so for me, the transition was good. Like I was ready to start full time for sure. Like once I was done with school, I was pretty eager to get going. So yeah, everything's been pretty good.
Great. So I've got one last question, but I think before I do that, I thought of while we were talking, one other thing I wanted to mention, only because of the current environment in 2020. So my additional question is, how has been working remotely, or how has the environment been for the past, 6 months? Do you have any thoughts you want to share? I guess I could start with my own, which is that we do work in an environment that's pretty conducive for working remotely because we're used to picking up our computers and going out to the clients. So I found it to be relatively smooth when we made the switch to working at home. But it's definitely been interesting doing the communication piece, really is the biggest thing, having the video meetings, having the interactions with the team, whereas normally you'd all be sitting out in an office together, maybe 4 or 5 of you. Now you got a couple people at home, maybe people in the office, but it really depends. So it's just been interesting using the technology to kind of make sure that we're staying in contact all day. But I just wanted to ask, if you had any thoughts on that or your experience. Megan, you?
All right, so for me starting, it was definitely interesting because I had worked in a pre-COVID environment and now during COVID, and it was definitely a little bit nerve-wracking because it's like normally you're all in a room together and you can just be like, hey, quick question, what's this? And it's like with some people working from home, some people in the office, some people at clients, it's definitely a little bit more difficult, but I feel like the firm does a really good job with our virtual meetings, where like one of the times I was working on something new, I had a virtual meeting scheduled the whole day with the manager who was on the job, and he was working from home and I was working at the office, and we had to go like the meeting all day, and basically we were on mute and I could like unmute myself and be like, hey, like I have a quick question, like can you like hop on? And we'd basically like share our screens, and it was definitely a lot easier like having those meetings all day to be able to ask quick questions and still feel like I wasn't being like left hung out to dry because I'm new, which definitely I feel like was a big thing for asking questions and like still feeling connected with your other coworkers. And we even had like a meeting with like the whole team on like a virtual meeting, which was really nice for like planning and different things. So I definitely feel like, especially in our industry, like we're able to use virtual and still be able to have like the same level of communication and with our work.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. Scott?
Yeah, so since March through like now, I've been kind of doing a little bit in the office and a little bit at home, and I'm just taking on like a week by week basis, right? So if I'm working on a team where people are comfortable with being in the office, I'll probably go in because I have a personal preference to working in person as opposed to via like a computer or virtual meeting. But if the manager and senior that I'm working with are working from home, I'm going to also work from home. And then what I found is that it kind of helps you with your question asking skills, right? So like you don't want to call somebody every 3 minutes with a one-off. Like, how do I do this? Then they answer it, they hang up the phone, you go for 5 more minutes, you have another question. It's good for you to like, you really try to think through a scenario, aggregate like a list of questions, and then it's a phone call away. And I found that like I very seldomly ever hit somebody's voicemail. Like when it's like during the day and people are working and you have a question, you call the senior, like it's one ring, hey, what's up? And then you figure it out, you know? So I find that I just think the team here is really good. Working from home, honestly, is pretty cool. It's relatively convenient. I have a preference to being in the office, but I can't complain either way, just based on the times we're living in. Um, but yeah, I think accounting is very conducive to being remote. So from what I've found is you can get the same amount of work done regardless of where you're at. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, very much. And it's nice to have that option. You know, you wake up maybe and there's a blizzard that day. Well, you can always work from home. So that's very nice. Okay, my last question here, and I will start with Scott, is what does it feel like to come to work?
So I will say that coming to work, like I feel like this might be pretty similar across board in public accounting, is I just feel like it's an adventure, right? Because I'm so new to all this that like to be honest, like I really don't know what I'm doing some of the time. So it's like, all right, what part of the data, like, all right, first of all, what client am I on today? What
Mhm.
industry is it in? What like who's on the team? Who am I going to reach out to for questions? What area of the database am I in? Have I ever seen this work paper before? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like for me, that's kind of what drew me to public accounting in the first place. Is it's not like repetitious. It's not like the first week of every month I do this. The second, it's like always different, always changing, super fast paced. And like what you think your schedule could be could switch on a dime. So yeah, it's just kind of like an adventure, and I'm just trying to figure things out, and I find it to be kind of fun. So
Great. Megan?
I 100% agree with what Scott said. That is also what drew me to public accounting and especially auditing, is that you aren't doing the same thing. Even if you're working on the same work paper, the same thing, it's going to be different for every client because they all have different rules and stuff. And I really enjoy coming into the office. Everybody you walk by will say, hi, good morning. Like you're able to go downstairs and get coffee together. And I really enjoy coming into the office and having that interaction with my coworkers. And then also when you're out at a client, you also get that interaction with the client. And I really do enjoy, especially like the culture and everything here at the company is great. And when I was looking for a job, that was what was a top priority for me, was a company that has a really good culture. And I know Dopkins really emphasizes the one firm. It's like, even though we have different sections, we have the tax section, the audit section, the wealth management, it's like everybody still comes together. And that was definitely really like evident even in like my first couple months here, is that like everybody in this company is one company. And it really, really embodies that when you're working here.
Definitely. No, yeah, that's well said. And I would certainly, just to give my own 2 cents, I would certainly echo what you both said. It's an adventure. Every day is different. I always say I've never been bored. I come in every day and you're always doing something different. So it's certainly an exciting place to work. Okay, well, that was my last question. So I want to say thank you to you both. And I'm going to end the recording now. So I hope this was helpful to anyone curious about Dopkins, about the internship, about working full time. And thank you for watching. Okay.
thanks.